Arsenal have beaten Tottenham in the North London derby yet again, but not only did they get the 3 points and the bragging rights, I think Arsenal actually exposed some key areas of concern in that Spurs side as well. And coming into this game, a lot of the talking points were actually around the Arsenal midfield, because obviously Declan Rice is suspended for this one and Martin Odegaard got injured during the international break, so who was Mikel Arteta going to be starting in that Arsenal midfield? And he had a couple of options, but the ones he decided to go for were Thomas Partey, Jorginho and Leandro Trossard. And looking at it on paper, that Arsenal versus that Spurs midfield, you'd actually say that Spurs midfield looks a lot more set. It's one that used to playing in midfield and used to playing with each other. However, Arsenal actually, despite what it looks like on paper, didn't play like this whatsoever. They actually let Spurs have the ball and they sat back and played with a 4-4-2 out of possession, with the wingers coming all the way back and Trossard playing more on the left and Havertz on the right, and forming a box midfield in front of that back four of the Arsenal defence, and made sure that Spurs had to constantly guard wide and didn't get any space and time with the ball in the middle of the pitch. And I actually think this is a tactic that worked really well. We actually saw it last season when Arsenal went away to Manchester City and got a 0-0 draw, but also when they won 3-2 against Tottenham in the North London derby last season. Arsenal let Tottenham have the ball and Arsenal sat back and defended and hit them on the counter-attack. And in the post-match of this game, I've seen a lot of people talking about the fact that they think Spurs dominated this game of football, and well, I can understand where they're coming from. I think, with Spurs having 64% of the possession compared to Arsenal's 36, I'd actually tend to disagree because of the fact that I think that, yes, Spurs might have dominated possession, but they didn't control the game in the way they wanted to. Because when you think about control, what was Spurs trying to do and how effective were they? Well, they were trying to break down this Arsenal side and score a goal. And Arsenal, what were they trying to do? They're trying to make sure that Spurs didn't concede and they went and tried to attack in moments. And so when you think about how were Spurs trying to break them down, Arsenal nullified them, in my opinion. I mean, Dominic Solanke had an okay game. He didn't really get many chances. Yes, he had one on the edge of the box where it didn't even register as a chance because Saliba ended up getting to him before that. And obviously you have the header where it loops over David Raya's head, but that was such a difficult chance. You can't really blame him for missing that one. And when you think about the wide players of Spurs, Brendan Johnson was all the way out on this touchline and Heung-min Son was all the way out on this touchline. And because they were just not letting Spurs have the ball on the edge of the Arsenal box, because these four of Thomas Partey, Jorginho, Havertz and Trossard were just creating a box outside their penalty area and just saying, you're not going to have the ball in this area and you're not going to get anywhere near us. So regardless, you're going to have to go out wide and try and cross it into the box. And obviously with White, Saliba, Gabriel, Timber, Jorginho, Partey, Spurs were just not going to break down this Arsenal side. And Arsenal was so resolute in doing so. And I really have an issue with this because I can understand from one perspective of Ange Postecoglou, who's come in for a lot of criticism, which will come on to Ange later on. But if you think about it, right, you think about your key threats in this Spurs side. You've got Heung-min Son, you've got Dominic Solanke, and you've got Brendan Johnson. And I can understand keeping the width of this Tottenham Hotspur side to try and really stretch out the Arsenal defence. But if you think about the key player, the key attacking player for the Spurs side, if you want a chance to fall to anyone else, it's probably Heung-min Son. But if you think about any time he got the ball, he was so wide in this game. And that's because he was constantly forced out there because that's where the space was. And Arsenal were just not letting Spurs have any space in the middle areas of the pitch. And then if you think about the other players, the creative players for Spurs, Maddison, Kulusevski, they were ended up going so far wide. You probably can't even see that actually. They were going so far wide because of the fact that they had to try and help out their wide man to try and get the ball. And if you think about any time Son was on the ball, he was so far out here trying to pass to Maddison. And anytime he passed it, you had White, Partey, Saliba. And on the other side, if you had Johnson on the ball passing to Kulusevski, you had Timber, Jorginho, Trossard. There was no space in the middle whatsoever. And I think that reflected in the fact that, Spurs had no big chances in this game. They only had 5 shots on target. And really, those chances weren't great because their XG was 0.74. So I think that Arsenal definitely nullified Spurs. And Spurs didn't really have any answers, which I think is a massive worry for Ange Postecoglou and Spurs going forward. But what did Arsenal do? Well, they relied on moments. I mean, Martinelli ended up running down the pitch at one point and he really should have squared it to Bukayo Saka. That was a really big chance. But not only that, what we know about this Arsenal side from last season is that they're exceptional at set pieces, and that's of course where the goal came from. And from the Arsenal perspective, it's all about finding different ways to try and break a team down, and set pieces has been one that was crucial for you last season. The team with the most goals from set pieces, and that number could actually be increased even further if you can count second and third phase of play as well. But Spurs, you know that from your perspective, your side is one of the worst at conceding set pieces, and you can see exactly where I'm going with this. So you know that this is going to be a crucial moment in the game. And when you look at it here, I think all the Spurs defenders are in a very good position, and I don't think you can blame Ange Postecoglou or any of the Spurs players apart from one, and that's Christian Romero, who has to take personal responsibility for this goal because he's arguably Spurs' best defender, and in this moment he lets the side down and also go on to, of course, win 1-0. But just think about it. Gabriel, the defender who scored the most goals from set pieces since his arrival into the Premier League. You have your best defender on Romero. You know you cannot let him get away. You have to defend this corner with everything, and he completely lets the side down. Because as Saka is about to kick this ball into the box, you can see Gabriel and Romero right in the middle of the penalty area. Romero has already lost sight of where Gabriel is. And in fact, if you're Gabriel and you're attacking player in this situation, you're looking at the fact that you can see the number of the player you're marking, and that is a bad place to be. If you're Christian Romero and if you're Gabriel, you are laughing because that is exactly where you want to be. Romero has no idea where Gabriel is, and I just think it's simple, it's basics. You have to take personal responsibility. You have to take pride in your defending, and this is such an easy thing for Spurs to stop. You just mark your men a bit better. And what should Romero do in this situation? I think you talk about all the time, you look at defenders in the Premier League, they're not even looking at the ball, they're looking at the man. And in this one, Romero is just completely ball watching and doesn't know where Gabriel is at all. And Gabriel, it's very easy for him, but I think, to be fair to him, the header is quality with that power on it as well. But I also think, you know exactly where this ball is going. Look at where all the other players are, the Arsenal and the Spurs players, they're all going into the box here, and I think that's one of Arsenal's great strengths. Ever since the set piece coach Nicolas Jurgen has joined the club, Arsenal have become fantastic at set pieces, and this delivery is going to be spot on, and Gabriel's going to get it on the end of it as well. But people have been talking about this little nudge that Gabriel has given Christian Romero, and I think it happens all the time, if we're being honest. But what I'd say is, Gabriel, I think he's completely entitled to give up his player a push just because you're in the box, you're trying to gain that extra yard. And Romero, he could potentially go down to try and bait the foul. I don't think it is for me because, as you can see, Romero stands up, he doesn't affect him whatsoever. And I think it's smart from Gabriel. But what I'd say is, if you're Romero and if you're looking at it from the Spurs perspective, you need to be side on. You can't let Gabriel put two hands to your back. He's got to be trying to push your shoulder or trying to push your waist away. He can't be putting two hands on your back. If he does that, then you're in a poor position. But I think the delivery from Saka, it's going to be pinpoint, and Gabriel gets to it obviously really, really well. And I could have stopped it at the last one, but I just wanted to show you, as Gabriel ends up getting the header, he is completely unmarked at this point. It's a completely free header in your 6-yard box, probably even maybe 4 yards out of goal. He's that close, and there's really nothing Vicario can do about it. I have seen some criticism though of Vicario. What could he have done to really stop this? And I think a lot of teams are now looking at Spurs and looking at the frailties at centre back, especially Arsenal as well, and that's one of the areas that we've seen they've capitalised on it time and time again. But could Vicario have done any better? I don't think so, because of the fact that all the Arsenal and all the Spurs players, apart from a few, are in that 6-yard box. So where is he meant to come out for this? And I actually thought it was quite interesting. And I thought, is Vicario, what is his strengths? What is his weaknesses? And is high claim something that teams are targeting in Spurs because of the fact that they concede from set pieces, and the Vicario maybe doesn't want to come out as often? And I found something that was actually really, really interesting. And I was looking at Vicario's FBref profile just so I can maybe get an idea of maybe what teams are trying to target. And obviously, as you can see, that what is one of his big strengths is being a sweeper keeper, because with Spurs and the very high line, you need the goalkeeper who's really good at sweeping up at the back. And as you can see from the average distance of defensive actions and the average actions outside the penalty area, he's one of the best. Where he's not one of the best, and this is only based on this season, but I thought this was incredibly interesting, is crosses stopped, 6.9% per 90, so in the 61st percentile. So he's only just slightly above average. So he's not very good at coming for those high crosses, well, at least not this season, and I think that's reflective of last season as well, which is why Arsenal and so many other teams are targeting Spurs in that 6-yard area from set pieces and especially corners. But then I thought, let's have a look. Let's click, and what it's going to do is this is going to give me who the best and the worst goalkeepers are at crosses stopped as a percentage per 90. Now think about it, in world football so far this season, who do you think is the best goalkeeper at stopping crosses? Got an answer in your mind? Great, let's find out. It's David Raya. And maybe that's a bit small, maybe you can't see it, but trust me, it's David Raya, 13.1% per 90. He claims the most crosses this season of any goalkeeper in the top 5 leagues of European football. And just that itself, I thought was a little bit funny, if I'm being honest, that the best goalkeeper at topping crosses is David Raya. And, Vicario is just an average goalkeeper at it. And that's definitely something that Arsenal noticed and definitely something that they tried to target in this game. And lastly, I just wanted to touch on that Arsenal backline. White, Saliba, Gabriel and Timber. I think they were absolutely phenomenal in this game. They had a game plan. We will not let Spurs score a goal in this game, and they did it to an absolute T. If you think about the lack of chances Spurs has had, it really highlighted what a fantastic job they did. And in particular, I think the left-hand side of that Arsenal defence, Timber, obviously after his ACL injury last year, a lot of people thinking about what type of player is going to come back, but I think he showed in this game that he was absolutely fantastic. Brennan Johnson, definite questions about his quality going forward. Is he, as high quality as Spurs need him to be, especially considering all the money that they spent on him? I think he constantly went down the right-hand side, trying to put a ball into the box, and it was just of really poor quality, and Gabriel and Saliba were there every time, and then he didn't really have anything different. It was constantly size up Timber, and then go down the line on the right-hand side, try and put a cross, and then Timber read him every single time, dispossessed him a couple of times as well, and he was absolutely fantastic. And Gabriel as well. I think people, when Calafiori was signed, and I think I was guilty of this as well, was saying that, okay, there are going to be some games where Arsenal are going to be very possession dominant on the ball and teams are going to sit back against them. So maybe having a player like Calafiori who could drive into that defence and try and play a pass could maybe upgrade on Gabriel there a little bit on the ball. But I think defensively, we need to give Gabriel a lot of credit. He is one of the best defenders in the league, and I don't think there are many other centre-backs who enjoy defending or look like they enjoy defending as much as he does as well. And I think, when we talk about the A side, Saliba, Gabriel, we talk about Van Dijk and someone else. I think because he's alongside Saliba, he doesn't often get the credit that he deserves. And I think he's come a long, long way since he first joined. And I think he was actually one of Mikel Arteta's first 5 signings at Arsenal. And I think what a brilliant player, what a signing he has been. And I think, that back four is going to take a lot of beating for other teams going forward as well. But obviously the next game is Manchester City away in the Premier League. How will they do in that one? Will playing like this work against Man City as well? We'll have to wait and see. But make sure you give the video a like, make sure you subscribe, because we will be here covering that one next week as well.